Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty interesting show for you here today. Looks like there's a changing of the guard in the NBA, and yeah, the new breed is coming for it. But before we get to that, you know what time it is.
If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait.
So the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and I got to admit, we are seeing some incredible basketball, some really outstanding games like night after night, and it's really entertaining. And I think a big part of why it's so entertaining is because the league is actually allowing these teams to defend. And so they're defending at a high level. They're introducing much more physicality than you would normally see in an NBA game, and it's making players play harder on both ends of the floor, and we're seeing who truly is, or who truly are, I should say, the elite offensive players in terms of being able to put up numbers, get their shots off, etc. Because when we see it during the regular season, and let's be real, it's very obvious that organizations and many players, and maybe even the league itself, just doesn't seem to care about the regular season NBA. But what we are seeing, and it's always been this way, and it's this way in every sport, right? We always hear that preseason is one thing in terms of level of play and intensity, and then we hear the regular season is the next step up, and then what the regular season is supposed to be is competition, preparing, ramping up for the playoffs, and then the playoffs are that next level. Obviously, it's win or go home, right? If you lose in the playoffs, then your season is over, and you got to wait until next year to start all over again, try to climb that mountain. And then, of course, finally, the finals or the Super Bowl or whatever that game is, that championship level, is just the top of the top, the pinnacle. And what we're seeing now is that playoff level intensity. And personally, I love it, because if you know me or you watch this show, you know I'm constantly complaining about that lack of defense and the lack of intensity, and guys not really wanting to go at it in the regular season in the NBA, and that turns a lot of the fans off. But what we're seeing now on this level in the playoffs, we are seeing that added level of fire, that added level of intensity. Guys are playing so much harder on both ends of the floor, and I'm loving what I'm seeing. Anyway, where is this all going? This is going to a very interesting place. So I have talked ad nauseum probably on other shows, and I've talked on other shows I've been on, and I've talked to my friends, and I've talked on this show about the drop-off that took place in the NBA in terms of popularity when Michael Jordan left the game all those years ago. Now, we saw the drop-off just in 1994 and 1995 alone until he came back, even though that actually spawned some players playing at some of the highest levels that we've ever seen in the NBA, whether it's Hakeem Olajuwon and his incredible back-to-back run, whether it's Shaquille O'Neal taking over the East and getting to the NBA Finals in 1995, whether it's seeing Grant Hill stepping up and stepping forward, maybe taking over the mantle as that next guy. Unfortunately, injuries derailed him. But we saw a lot of tremendous play. But what? You were kind of in a void in the NBA in terms of star power. Why? Magic Johnson was gone. Larry Bird was gone. Michael Jordan was gone. All those guys were now away from the game and seemingly retired. Obviously, we know Michael Jordan came back later and had a second three-peat, but all those guys who were the standard bearers and the guys who really led that wave of popularity for the NBA, all those guys were gone. And so even though, as I mentioned, you saw some other players just having tremendous seasons and playing at a tremendous level. Obviously, David Robinson is another one, winning his MVP in 1995 and just playing basically all world before he got outplayed in the Western Conference Finals by Hakeem Olajuwon. We just saw some tremendous basketball. But again, those guys didn't move the needle in terms of star power like your Magics and your Birds and your Jordans. And then we saw Michael Jordan come back and lead the Chicago Bulls to another three-peat along with Scottie Pippen. But obviously, we know that Michael Jordan was the main guy on that. We saw him come back. They won another three-peat. And to this day, the highest rated NBA Finals game was Game 6 of the 1998 Finals, where Michael Jordan hits that shot against Byron Russell and puts the series away and caps off his second three-peat, his sixth championship, and the Bulls' sixth championship. I shouldn't say his, like he's the only one who got it. Obviously, he had support, but we also know he's the main guy, as most people understand. He's the greatest basketball player of all time. Now, with that, after that season, Michael Jordan retired for the second time, and we know he came back again with the Wizards, but we saw a dip again from 1998 to, what was that, 2001. With Michael Jordan not being in the league, we saw a tremendous dip in the popularity of the game, in the ratings of the game, even though, again, you had a young Kobe Bryant, you had young Ray Allen, you had young Shaquille O'Neal, you had young Tim Duncan coming into the league, Vince Carter, Allen Iverson. You had a handful of tremendous players in the NBA at that point. But again, they don't move the needle like your Magic Johnsons and your Michael Jordans and your Larry Birds. It just wasn't the same, even though those guys were tremendously talented and doing amazing things on the basketball court. And one of the biggest things I've often lamented is that the NBA did a very poor job of preparing the fans, I'll say us, I'm included in that, preparing the fans for what the NBA would be without those guys. And how do I mean they did a poor job of preparing the fans for what the NBA would be without those guys? What they didn't do was market that next crop of superstars properly in order to kind of, and obviously no league is going to be able to survive a Michael Jordan stepping away, but they didn't, what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't cushion the landing. So for the NBA fan, it was like falling out of a 10-story building and landing on concrete. They didn't cushion the landing to soften the blow, to say, okay, Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time, is gone now, but we have an incredible crop of young talent that's coming up right behind him that's going to allow you to continue to enjoy and love the game of basketball the way you did when Michael Jordan was playing it. And so I've said for years that LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, those guys who were some of the best of all time to ever do it, what you had was another situation where the NBA was likely going to be in trouble. Why was the NBA likely going to be in trouble? Because I felt that the NBA did a poor job once more of preparing the NBA fan, casual or, well, I'll say the casual fan, right? Because the real NBA fan loves the game of basketball more so than they just love to follow players. They love basketball. And so they will generally watch no matter who's playing. But you have so many fans that are just LeBron fans, or maybe just Steph fans, or just Kobe fans, or what have you. We call those the casual fans. And there's nothing wrong with that. Most leagues are built on the casual fan. You have the diehards, and then you have the casuals. The casuals also spend money. The casuals also watch, and there's nothing wrong with those guys. But when a certain player, the player that they love or are huge fans of, goes away and steps away from the game, either temporarily or permanently, well, then that fandom of the casual fan often goes with them. And so I've often been saying that the NBA was going to be in big trouble because I felt like they were doing a poor job of preparing the league for what was going to be next. LeBron James is in his 21st season and looks like he can still play for a long time. He's putting up huge numbers, but no one can play forever. Injuries can come up unexpectedly. Your level of play, we often hear from all-time great players that your level of play can just drop off overnight as Father Time eventually takes the lead on you. LeBron James has been the most successful professional athlete maybe ever in terms of staving off the effects of Father Time. But again, he's not immortal. He's not inhuman. Eventually, Father Time will catch up. And so LeBron can't play forever, no matter what we think. Kobe Bryant couldn't play forever, no matter what we thought. Tim Duncan couldn't play forever, although Tim Duncan wasn't necessarily a needle mover either. He was just an all-time great player. But you get the point I'm trying to make. These guys can't play forever, and that's fine. But what happens? We wonder, and I know I did, what is the NBA going to do? Because I didn't see them prepping that next generation. But it looks like Adam Silver is actually doing just that. And why am I saying that? Okay, so if we look at the NBA Finals from 2011 to 2023, all but 2 seasons either had the NBA Finals having LeBron James, which obviously he had the most appearances. I think he's got, 10 total. LeBron James, Steph Curry, or Kevin Durant. All those guys were in the NBA Finals all but 2 years between 2011 and 2023. And obviously all 3 of them are out of the playoffs now, and that's what I was getting to. They won't be in the NBA Finals this year. So this is only the 3rd year out of 14 seasons that one of those 3 guys won't be in it. And so that is whole new territory, new ground for the NBA. And that could have been a bad thing. But now what we're seeing is maybe it's not. I don't expect the ratings to be through the roof, but this is interesting because it gives. And here's the thing, these guys are out of the playoffs early. Kevin Durant is out in the first round. LeBron James is out in the first round. And Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors did not even make the playoffs. So now we're going into the second round for the first time in all these years without one of those three. And so now you're getting an opportunity for the rest of the run, second round, conference finals, NBA finals, to see a batch of new stars, younger stars. And I like to call these guys the new breed. Now, you're going to see some of them coming up here. Obviously, Giannis is not necessarily the new breed. He's been in the league for a while, but he's considered one of the younger guys. And one of the things I love about Giannis, even though he's not a super skilled player, he's a player that worked. He worked because nobody thought that he was going to become what he is. Then you got Nikola Jokic, generally thought is the best player in the world now. And quick side note, Jokic is not athletic at all, but I keep hearing how this era is so much bigger, stronger, faster, and more athletic, yet you got Jokic and Luka Doncic. Here's Luka. And these guys are killing these so-called elite athletes. What's going on there? I'd love to hear from all you younger people and all you people, period, who keep telling me how this league is so much better, so much more athletic, and so much more explosive and all of that. Meanwhile, you got Luka and Jokic, arguably the two best players in the world, destroying all these so-called great athletes, and neither one of them is that. Then you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's getting busy. He's averaging like 30. He plays defense. He passes the ball. Just a tremendous guy overall. And these are four of the top young players in the league. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I left out Anthony Edwards in that clip. But Anthony Edwards he's the other guy. And so he's getting busy. He and the Minnesota Timberwolves just knocked Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns and their super team out of the playoffs. And we've heard the Anthony Edwards, Michael Jordan comparisons, which I don't really see him, but a lot of other people are saying they see him. Michael Jordan allegedly told Chris Broussard, well, I guess I got to believe Chris Broussard. I can't assume that he's going to come on national radio and lie about it. But he said he texted Michael Jordan, and that Michael Jordan says, yes, he sees the similarities between himself and Anthony Edwards. So I guess we'll go with what Broussard and the GOAT said. Me personally, I don't really see it that much when I watch him play, other than Anthony Edwards is super athletic and wants to play defense and has a really good mid-range game and is very, very explosive and will dunk on anybody. But we'll see. Obviously, that's an extremely high bar to be compared to Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest of all time. But we'll see what Edwards ends up becoming. But the deal is this. You got these four young guys, and these are the guys that we are going to watch throughout the rest of this playoff run. Presumably, Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets are going to repeat. That's probably a fair assumption. Again, I'm not a gambler, so don't take my word for it. But I think it's a fair assumption just based on the way they play, the way Jokic is playing, and how well coached they are. So I think the NBA has done a really interesting job in prepping this. And I'm really surprised by it because I didn't expect for the NBA to have the answer when you look at guys like I mentioned, like Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James stepping away. Now, LeBron is closer to retirement than Curry and Kevin Durant are, but all those guys are pretty much on the back nine. So anyway, Adam Silver had some interesting comments to make. I don't have the clip, but I actually listened to the comments earlier. And one of the things he said that really surprised me, because I've been one of the people who's, again, been lamenting the state of the NBA, the level of play of the NBA, the fact that I felt it wasn't prepared for the all-time greats that I mentioned stepping away from the NBA. I've been lamenting all of that. However, I've also lamented the ratings, how the TV ratings keep going down, at least domestically, but it seems there's a reason that that's not such a big deal. Adam Silver said in an interview a few months back that 75% of I think 70% of the 75%, I'm sorry, of the NBA viewership is from overseas, and that's incredible. So you look at roughly 30% of NBA players now are foreign born, and then you say 75% of NBA viewership is overseas. The goal since 1992 with the Dream Team was not just for America to take back the crown of being the best basketball nation in the world. It was to spread the game and make it international, to bring international money into our coffers, right? And so that makes a lot of sense. David Stern really started that ball rolling. And then, of course, you've seen how basically the NBA game and the game of basketball has spiked globally. Now, it was always played internationally. You look at guys like Sabonis and all those guys, the USSR team before USSR broke up into the former Soviet Socialist republics. And then you have all these different, the former Yugoslavia has broken up. I think it's was it Serbia and Slovenia and Croatia and Czech Republic. No, not Czech Republic. But you get the point. And they broke up into a number of countries, and those are teams that really fed the European basketball well. And so you got a lot of guys that are coming from overseas, and now you have the NBA really pushing and looking for all the gems from Africa, and a lot of the African guys can be found in France, but then you see some on the actual African continent as well. And we know that started kind of with Hakeem Olajuwon and Dikembe Mutombo. Those are the two main guys. So you're getting NBA talent from all over the world, and so Adam Silver loves that. He's not upset with that, and now that's why you're seeing not just the fact that 4 out of maybe the 5 best young players in the world are foreign born. Shai Gilgeous is Canadian. Was it Jokic is Serbian. Luka is Slovenian. Embiid, I didn't even mention him. Embiid is from, I believe, the Cameroon. And who's the other guy I had there? Oh, man, I forgot. But anyway, the point is you getting so many of these great young players are foreign born. And what does that do? That pushes the foreign market. That gets foreign dollars coming in. That gets foreign viewership. And so you have more and more of this going on. And that's why Adam Silver doesn't particularly seem to be bothered by the fact that for the first time in a long time, his 3 big guns, quote unquote, are not going to be continuing on in the NBA playoffs. And I thought that was really, really interesting in that. And so we're going to see just how, I guess, after the playoffs are over, we're going to see how the playoff numbers are and see how that pans out. I don't know how well that's going to do among American viewers. Obviously, we know that it's going to do well overseas in terms of watching these guys. Again, Luka and Jokic and Shai Gilgeous and Giannis. There we go. Giannis was the 4th guy. Greek of Nigerian descent, so he's got the European market in Greece, and then he's got the African market in Nigeria, so you've got all of that. If Joel Embiid and the Sixers should somehow come back and manage to win this series against the Knicks, I don't anticipate it, but should that happen, then you're going to get more interest from the African market as well as some of the European market there. So it's very, very interesting, and the NBA looks to be in good hands in terms of going forward and players to market and players to kind of carry on the torch once LeBron and Steph and KD are gone, because you really got to wonder. We don't know how much these guys have left. LeBron obviously wants to continue to play with he wants to play long enough to play with his son. That's been a stated goal. And in my estimation, he also wants to play long enough to put a lot of these statistical records out of reach. I don't have anything definitive on that. That's just kind of my thought on LeBron and the rest of his career based on what we've seen from him over the last 21 years. So yeah, this is going to be really interesting. I'm super excited to kind of see where the numbers end up at the end of this playoff run in terms of viewership and ratings and popularity and all of that, because this is going to be the first real litmus test that we've had in a very long time. So it should be interesting. What I want to know from you, is whether or not you think that the NBA is ready and prepared, and are they doing enough to market these young guys? Are they really pushing it? Do you think people are still going to enjoy it? Do you think people are still going to watch? Leave your comments in the comment section. Can't wait to hear from you. Can't wait to get back with you next episode. And Saturday night we got a live show, so looking forward to that. And yeah, I'll be back with you next episode, and I'm out. Peace.